It's that time again. If you're a real estate agent and you're looking to finally build a business that creates consistent cash flow, but you're concerned about all the market disruptions, relax. You found your safe haven to learn the secret to success. List, you last. Welcome to this week's podcast. Hey, welcome, fellow listing agents. Bob Mangold, the listing coach here with episode 50 of the If You List, You Last podcast. Hey, as always, thanks for listening, sharing, and downloading. I'm excited to have you here today because I'm going to share some controversial statements, opinions, and thoughts. I'm going to just give it to you real today, in my opinion. Today's topic is about making the decision to either focus on listings or just get out of the business. And this doesn't mean you can't make a living working with buyers, but you'll never build a real estate business by focusing on buyers alone. Now, what's the difference? The living means you're always moving from closing to closing. Maybe you're making $40,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year. That's a living, right? But you're not in control of your time or your income. As a buyer's agent, you're always going to be chasing money. A business means that you have systems, procedures, and structure to ensure that you always have a stream of clients and closings by building market share, brand identity, and recognition in the area that you choose to work. Now, the only way to do that is through listings. With listings, you're chasing freedom of time, not money. So I'm going to share 10 ideas, some systems, and opinions around this topic, okay? Now, just a reminder, make sure you join our Real Estate Asset Advisor Facebook group so you can join in on the conversation, share your thoughts, comments, or questions on any of the topics I discuss right here on the podcast. If after listening to this, you think I'm nuts, go ahead, join the group, and tell me. And don't forget, you can always connect with me at www.bobmangold.com. So, you ready to have some fun? Let's get to it. The first step, if you want to become a dominant listing agent and start focusing on listings, is you have to differentiate yourself. You have to stop doing what every other agent does, right? Which the truth is most agents don't do that much. The problem is for most agents, well, what if you're new or newer to the business? What if you're not a mega producer that you can brag about? That you can say, oh, I close 300 transactions a year. What do? You need to have a process and focus on the process of what you do. Now, this is going to require you to sit down and think that through about what you can do. Now, if you go to my website, I have a bunch of classes on there that you can watch to give you ideas on how we do that and what separates us, and that might help you out. But you have to focus on a process, not on you or your company. The minute you make the listing presentation or the conversation about you, then you open yourself up to the questions. How long have you been doing this? How many listings have you sold? What was the average sales price, right? If you talk about your company, in essence, what you're saying is you're not important. It's the company that matters. You can't do that. But if you actually have a process and you focus on that process, you're going to have a whole lot more success. Now, unfortunately, there hasn't been a different way to market and sell homes in more than 100 years, right? We've been doing the MLS forever, right? I created a process about 7 years ago called Home Boss that made it different. And I'm going to talk about how you can help, explain that to sellers in a couple of minutes, right? The first thing that you need to do if you want to focus on listings is you have to differentiate yourself. So that's just some ideas that you can focus on there. So number one, differentiate. Number two, you have to know your market. What does that mean? We hear that all the time. Oh, I must be a market expert. What does that look like? Really? Here's the good news. You could drop me out of a plane, any place in the country, give me access to MLS, and within an hour, I'll be an expert on your market. Now, if you're watching this on video or on YouTube, I'm going to put up a graphic of what an analysis looks like. So I have something that I call a zip code and absorption rate. And what it does is I'm able to take and analyze by zip code what's going on in a market. Now, I can dig down even deeper than a zip code. I could dig down into a subdivision. I could dig down into a school district. And you go, who cares about a school district? That's not important. That's not true. If you live in a market like Phoenix, and I'm going to think Las Vegas and many in Southern California have the same issue, we have people that sell their homes just to get their kids in the right high school district where they have good sports programs. So we have people that want to move into the Chaparral High School district because they have such a successful program, or they want to move down into Chandler, where Chandler High School has put more football players into the NFL than any other high school. And people are literally willing to take and sell their homes to get into those school districts. If I wanted to break that down so that I had a great analysis of it, this is what I would do. Yeah, I would dig in deeper than just the zip code. But for argument's sakes, I tell everybody to do this now, or to do this every 3 months now at this point in time. I used to do it every 6 months, but right now the market is changing and fluctuating so badly over the really each quarter of the year that you really want to be able to stay in tune with that, right? So think of it this way. I'm recording this in November. Back in September, interest rates had dropped down to 6 or just a shade below 6%. You've seen the number of mortgage applications for purchase tick up. You've seen home sales tick up. Well, now interest rates are about 6.75. Makes a difference. So every 3 months. And what we do is we look at the average or median sales price, how many properties closed in the last 3 months, the average days on market, how many are currently active, how many closed in the last 30 days. And that will give you your absorption rate. So if you're actually watching this on YouTube, you can see in the example I have up, there's 91 active listings, 56 closed in the last 30 days, which means you have an absorption rate of 1 month, 1.625 months. Call it 1 3/4 months. That's a seller's market, folks, in that particular zip code. Now, these homes sold at an average list to sales price ratio of 96.2%, meaning they dropped about 3.8 from where they listed to sell the property. That's not good information or bad information that says, gosh, you don't take a listing in that market, but it does tell you what's going on. If you were in your listing presentation, you're a brand new agent, and you pulled this out, and you said, let's take a look at what's going on in the market. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to break this down by zip code for you. And then I'd like to break it down by your subdivision. And then if it isn't a good school district or whatever, and by school district. And let's look at what homes in these exact areas are selling for. And you had this kind of an analysis broken down of the top 10 or 12 zip codes. And you could tell them what the absorption rate was, how many homes are selling a month, how many are currently active, and what the list to sales price ratio is. Do you think they're going to ask you how long you've been in real estate? They can see that you clearly understand the market and have the facts and the data to back it up. So you have to be able to talk to people in a way in which you can explain the market to them. By doing this, and it takes about an hour roughly to gather this data. So if 4 times a year you did this, I promise it's going to completely change the way you run your business. Now, the other reason that I have agents do this is to pick areas that I want to find where I want to focus my advertising dollars. Right? Here's an area, if you look at the very last zip code on this, the purchase price is much higher, but only 86 homes sold in the last 6 months. Average days on market are 192. Now, I didn't take that out further for this. Just wanted to use it as an example. But I doubt I'd spend any money to market. Would I do direct mail? Would I do Facebook targeted ads in that zip code? And the answer is I wouldn't. There's not enough activity there. I had one of my coaching clients a couple of years ago said, hey, I want to focus exclusively on my zip code or on my subdivision. I said, cool. How many homes sold there that in the last 12 months? She goes, I don't know. I said, let's find out. She called me back about 20 minutes later. She goes, oh, never mind. 3 homes sold in this subdivision in the last year. Doesn't mean she can't market in that subdivision, but it's not going to pay her bills. So you have to know and understand the market. How does that help you differentiate yourself? If you're the only agent that walks in and it has this discussion and shows them that you're the pro that you broke this down, who's getting the listing? Make sense? So you got to know your market and how to do that. Number 3, the first rule of sales: help the sellers get what they want. It was Zig Ziglar that said, hey, for you to become rich, help a lot of people get what they want. What does a seller really want? Let's talk about that first. First is fast. I want this thing done fast. Now, the market's going to dictate fast or speed, right? And they definitely want to net the most amount of money. At the end of the day, that's really what's most important to them, right? They'll phrase it as, well, I want the highest sales price. Just understand when they're saying that, they're really saying, I want the highest net price. Because when we talk about pricing, we always say, what is it that you need to net from the sale of this house to get you to the next property? And then finally, to eliminate the hassles and headaches. Now, if you've been on any of my podcasts, you've seen any of the classes that I teach, I consistently talk about this Core Logic survey that did 10,000 home sellers. And what they found was 77% of them would be willing to take 5 to 10% less in equity just to avoid the hassles and headaches of a traditional sale. That means that's your process. See, when I talk to people, I talk about the old-fashioned sales process, which is what all my competition, other agents do. I don't use the word traditional. Why? Traditions are good. It's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas, it's 4th of July, it's the holidays. They're traditions. Old-fashioned is what? Ooh, that's bad. So trust me, the language we use matter. So here's my question for you. We talked about having a process. What does your listing process look like that will solve these problems for people? What does that look like? And then how can you turn that into, I typically will use it as a unique selling prop. You know, I got that phrase from Dan Kennedy in the early 90s. What is it that you do that all your other competition doesn't? So how do you take your process and utilize that and use that to formulate a unique selling proposition? So I'm going to share mine with you to give you an idea, because you're going to need to have a written one that you could send to them even before you do the listing presentation, right? So here it goes. My number one priority, number one when selling a home, is to protect my seller's equity using my Home Boss system. Notice the word I use, protect. I didn't talk about selling it. I didn't talk about being a good agent. My job is to protect your equity, folks. Then I help them when they buy, sell, and finance their real estate through me, pay off their home in 7 to 10 years. So when we do sell this house, the goal is to get your next one sold in 7 to 10 years. Because my process, the Home Boss process, is very simple. We're going to get your home under contract in 14 days. We're going to get the highest market value guaranteed, and we're going to completely eliminate the hassles and headaches. And then when we accomplish that, on the next house you buy, my goal is to help you get it paid off in 7 to 10 years and use the money that you would have paid to the bank and turn that into a retirement fund of at least $1 million. Now, that'll fund your retirement. Now, bear in mind that $1 million is on top of the equity in your property. Ask yourself, folks, if you actually were talking to people like that, would you get better results? Certainly going to have their attention, right? Number 4, you have to have options when you're listing properties, right? Sellers have options, right? They can sell it on their own. They could get a cash offer. They could hire a mega team. They could hire any other agent. And in all likelihood, folks, most people go, oh, I have a relative who's going to do it for me, and they'll just charge me $500. If they have options, does it make sense that you should have options? Do you have a cash offer option? You're not a mega team, but how do you compete against a mega team? Did my unique selling proposition before, are they going to listen to me, or are they going to be more worried about a mega team? So if you don't have options in how you're marketing and selling their house, right? We run into people all the time that, hey, if they would only fix up the house, they could sell it for $50, $75, $100,000 more. Do you have those relationships where you could make that happen for them? Do you have the cash offer? Hey, most likely they're not going to take it, but you need to have those available to you, because when they have all those options, means they could hire any realtor they want. Which one would they want to hire? The one who could sell it fast, 14 days, highest market value guaranteed, eliminate all the hassles and headaches, or have resources to get the house fixed up, provide the money to do that, and then resell it, or maybe just get them a cash offer. Do you see how when you have all those options available, can we agree you're going to be able to take more listings and they're going to listen to you? Number 5, you have to answer the commission objection, folks. In most cases, it's coming up. You could make an argument a year ago. A lot of people didn't even ask. They just, okay, cool, 6%, yeah, have a good day. Didn't ask. More are now asking after all this lawsuit nonsense. So you have to be prepared for it. So one of the things that the home boss process does, it completely takes care of that. So here's our conversation. So folks, what were you thinking about offering in terms of agent compensation? Notice I didn't say what commission I'm charging, what are you willing to pay? What were you thinking about offering in terms of agent compensation? The typical answers, they'd go, hey, I know it's 6. If we could get it for 5, that'd be cool. 4 would be even better. Because of our process, we're able to say, great, why don't we just do 3? And then if it's okay, I have a process to be able to take and offer compensation to the buyer's agents if another agent brings the offer, but it won't come out of your net proceeds. Would you be okay with that? Folks, we've been using that for almost 7 years, and here's what I can tell you. Nobody's ever said, no, I want to pay it out of my proceeds. Again, it's about your process. How are you going to answer the commission objection? How are you going to justify it? And folks, it is not about running more ads or how long you've been in the business or any of that stuff. You need to answer those 3 questions. What are you going to do to sell it fast, get me the most money at closing, and avoid my hassles and headaches? It's about the process. It's not you. They don't care if you have 3 kids and you love cats and dogs and you got 2 grandkids. They don't care. They care about the money that you're going to put in their pocket. Your process has to be able to answer that. Think back to what I gave you as our unique selling proposition and ask yourself, is that a compelling conversation for them to have? And if I could literally sell their house, highest market value guaranteed, 3% comes out of their net proceeds, I get it done in 14 days, we don't put a lockbox on the house, so we're not having random showings, so we eliminate all the hassles and headaches. Then when you buy another house, I can turn you into a cash millionaire. Do you think those are good reasons to talk about it? But more importantly, do you think they ever object to commission paying me that money because of the value that I could bring to them? And the answer is, of course not. Number 6, never, ever set the list price. Let's talk about market value. What is the market value? Is whatever a buyer is willing to pay today at this time for this house. That is market value. If you doubt it, folks, think back over the last couple of years of COVID. We had people getting into bidding wars and they're paying $100,000 more for the house, and yet somehow they still magically appraised. If you had 10 people submitting offers, is it reasonable that an appraiser could say all these people were willing to pay more than what, the comps show, and those houses appraised? They appraised because that was the market value. Let the market set the value. So within our process, we let the market dictate the market price. Because the minute you set a price, folks, what's the buyer's agent, or the buyer or buyer's agent, right? They don't even need to have a buyer's agent anymore. They never did. But the buyer's job is to take and try and negotiate the price lower, get them to kick in closing costs and all those other things, right? When you're doing that, think of listing a property like fishing. What does the average agent do? They throw their line in the water. That's called MLS. They hope to snag a fish. Then they negotiate with that one buyer. Who has leverage now, the buyer or the seller? What we do with our process is we throw a net in the water and we get a bunch of people to submit offers so that we create that frenzy to pay more money for the house. Make sense? If you only have one buyer, the price is going to get negotiated down. And you can prove that in that analysis that I showed you, because the list to sales price is always almost less, always, other than the crazy markets of 2021, is always less than what the starting price was. The system is built to negotiate down. I just built a process that the system is built to negotiate up. Make sense? Provide proof. Number 7, provide proof that your marketing produces higher sales prices. Don't tell people, show people. We have proof that it works. We have more than 1,000 transactions that we can show that happened with. We can prove that process works. Number 8 is to create competition amongst buyers. The reason our process works is because we create competition with buyers. Yes, even in a slow market. We had one of our agents' listings in Michigan, had 28 different people submitting offers on the home. That's competition. Just understand this. When buyers compete, sellers win. What does your process do that creates competition? And if you don't have a process that does that, putting it into MLS, letting people come one at a time to look at it, is not a process that creates competition. So I told you today you're going to have to think about some things. I didn't say I was going to necessarily make this easy, but you can go to my website, bobmangold.com, and click on, I think it's the resources tabs, and you'll see a bunch of classes that I recorded on these things to give you an idea and then figure out what you might want to do. All right, number 9, develop an open house system. Here's the thing, folks. An open house system, I see this all over Facebook. It's like, open houses are the biggest waste of times ever. When you do an open house from like 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 and you put 2 signs out, that's a waste of time. Our record open house is 1,224 people in April of 2023. The house I told you that we just had the 28 offers in Michigan, we had more than 100 people in it. What does your open house system look like? Do you have a system? Do you have a checklist of what you can do? Can you sit down in a listing presentation and show a buyer, hey, exactly here are all the steps of what we're going to do to take and promote this open house, to get that marketing, to create competition? Do you have a process that you can show them? Because when you do, you're going to convert more appointments into listings. And folks, here's what I really will tell you. It'll completely change your confidence level, which will change your results. Now, when you have these open houses, what we teach all of our agents to do is videotape the heck out of these things, even if we have to put them together. So people tell me all the time, oh, I think you're lying to me, 1,224 people. The good news is we have video proof of it. When you can show your clients, if they go, oh, I don't think you could get that many people, and you had video proof on all these different listings, or you took pictures of the lines of people at your house, provide proof. Don't promise. See, when you're telling people something, you have a saying, when you're telling, you're selling. And when you're selling, you're actually making promises. Stop promising people and start proving that what you do works. Provide proof that your process delivers. So provide proof of your process instead of promises. 3 P's. So we always tell people to make sure that you're taking pictures. And then my last point, to close or pick up an additional 3 to 5 additional transactions from each listing, right? My goal is, we call it 5 from 1. Our agents who work those open houses, their job is real simple. Your job is to get 5 more transactions every month from the open houses that you're working from. Now, that could be 5 buyers, 5 sellers, 3 and 2, 2 and 3. We don't care. It's their job. When I say it's their job, that means I have to have some kind of training for them, don't I? And we do. And we have to have a strategy of what kind of materials we're going to have available so that we could talk to people, right? We're going to have a process about what they say. So when people come in, every time I travel, folks, if I'm out on a weekend, I go by open houses. And I really want to see what agents are saying when you walk in the door. Hey, how you doing? What brings you in today? That has to be the worst line for an open house that I've ever heard. But that's probably 80% of the agents say that. So what brings you in today? What if you asked a question like, hey, folks, you're looking for a house to live in, or is this going to be an investment? Stop asking yes or no questions. So a simple strategy would be able to do that. Hey, are you looking to buy a home at retail? Or are you open to take and look at homes where you could get them at a wholesale price? That's going to stop them in their tracks, right? Or what's your strategy to get them sign in? Here, sign in. The seller requires that. And then they put in Mickey at mickeymouse.com, and the phone number is 305-555-1212. Do you have a strategy to text them information on the house? Hey, scan this QR code. It'll take and deliver a flyer, and it's going to give you a whole bunch of other information on schools and things like that. Put together a whole package. Just scan that and get it. Guess what? Now I've got their cell phone number. I don't need them to sign it at all. What's your strategy look like? What's your system look like? What's your process look? So if you were doing those 10 things, folks, centered your business around listings, and you were able to take and master those 10 things, what would your cash flow look like? What would your lifestyle look like if you weren't the one working with buyers and you hired buyers agents to work with them and had them paying you an override? What would that look like? But you can't do this working with buyers. You can target the specific areas, you can do the research, you can find out where homes are selling, and that's where you want to take and look to build market share. And then you could focus on taking the listings, and you could hire agents to work the open houses, to work with the buyers, and have them pay you a referral fee. Your cash flow would be completely different, wouldn't it? And your lifestyle would be a lot better. You're not working 7 days a week. You're not working open houses and things of that nature. And that's why the difference, folks, of being a buyer's agent is you have a real estate job. And quite honestly, that job sucks. I don't know a nicer way to say it. You could end up working 50, 60 hours a week. You're at the whim of a buyer. You're supposed to go out for dinner on Saturday night, and at 5 o'clock, they call you up and go, hey, I want to go look at this $1 million house. As well as I do, you're going to drop everything you're doing and go show that. So you have a job. A job means you're simply trading time for money. A real estate business means you're generating money without having to be there doing the work. If an offer comes in for $1 million on your listing on Saturday night at 5 o'clock, do you have to drop everything that you're doing and contact the seller? You don't. You're in control of your time, and you can never do that with a buyer. So I have nothing against buyers. Obviously, we need them. God love them. But what if we trained a new generation of agents on how to deliver massive value to buyers? And we gave them a career path where, well, let's say we had them work with us for a year, and then we started teaching them how to list, and we gave them a career path. Would everybody in our industry get better if we were doing things like that? I would argue we could. So my goal today was to give you a lot to think about, even some homework, and take it serious about starting to create a real estate business. A business focused on listings is going to last a long time, and you can't do it with buyers. So that's why everything I always tell you, folks, if you list, you last. So until the next podcast, hopefully I gave you a lot to think about, gave you some homework, gave you some resources. You can go to my website, bobmangold.com, and I've got a bunch of stuff in there, classes and videos that you can watch to learn about those processes and go from there. If you ever want to schedule a call with me, you can do that. There's a link that you can do it. So, folks, I hope that helps. I hope I gave you some things to think about, maybe look at the business a little bit differently, because I do want you to remember, if you list, you last. Take it serious. We'll talk to you next week.